can sort of field them. And then, of course, after about 20 to 25 minutes of the presentation, then we'll go ahead and go into the Q&A. And I think with that, I'll hand it over before it goes too choppy again.
Thank you, Marie.
Okay, thank you. Well, greetings, everybody, and welcome. And really happy that you have joined us. And so as Marie said, Michael and I will we'll talk with you a little bit. So we'll do a fair bit of talking. We'll show some slides to sort of talk through this new program, and then we're going to open it up for a conversation. So that's kind of how this will go. This is an hour long.
What we're wanting to do here is to give you enough information to provoke you so that you can decide whether this is the right cohort for you to join, A, and whether this is the right timing, B.
Yeah.
And that's in a program like this, this is a very serious commitment on your part, quite frankly. It's a serious commitment to yourself. It's a serious commitment to us. It's a serious commitment to the people in the cohort that will be joining you. And so we don't want you to make it lightly. We ask you to fill out an application. There's no pay link on the Eventbrite for this because you can't just decide to do it. You have to be in communication with us. So we're trying to create an environment here where you can get what you need to know to help you make that decision for yourself.
Yeah. And part of what so in a sense, you can think of this as, like beginning to move into an inquiry for yourself about what's next in your own leadership development, right? So since you're here, we take it that you're serious. And so part of it is also getting to know us, getting a sense of how we are, how we work. Good. People are still coming in. Okay, great. Anything else that we want to say before we sort of jump into slides?
No, let's just go. Good. Thank you.
Okay, so we want to start by just saying that this is a program in mastery. So it's not like we assume that people who come into this program are already on a path to mastery. And this program is about facilitating a long-term, what we call a deliberately developmental environment that's oriented around your own inner development, your inner leadership development, and your mastery over the competencies involved in actually doing this sort of transformation work in organizations. So we're going to talk you through a little bit some of the elements of the program.
Let me just say something about, sorry, Michael, let me just say something about the term mastery. There is an IC Agile credential associated with this, the expert in enterprise coaching. But truly, if that was your primary motivation, you should think about a different cohort. You're going to get that, assuming you do the work at the end of this program, but that's not the primary motivation for us or for you from our point of view. It's about mastery. You're going to get a lot better in this program than you are right now. I can guarantee you that, unless you don't play. But if you play, you will get a lot better.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, because this is not for people who are just looking to get the certification. It's really people who are committed to being on a path to mastery because this is demanding. Okay, so we want to start with the Agile Coach Competency Framework, and some of you know this, maybe most of you know this, and this is a competency. This is a set of competencies for Agile coaching. And while it's a necessary foundation for the transformation mastery program, it in and of itself is insufficient. That when we talk about mastery in the domain of enterprise coaching, we're talking about something not just bigger, but of a different dimensionality. And so we want to kind of say something about the nature of that dimensionality.
So in this, you'll notice that that model was developed by us at ACI, at Agile Coaching Institute. And when I created this diagram, I wanted to leave the X-wing feature in it that people are very familiar with. But I wanted to also add the integral quadrants, because the newer version of our work is very integrally oriented.
Yeah. So we have the same essential competencies that you find with Agile Coach competency model, but we add two more. One of them is the competency around transformation, which is catalyzing transformation in individuals and systems around you. And the other one is in the area of design, thinking about organizations and systems from a design perspective. As we walk through this, we're looking at both agents, individuals, so transformation within individuals, but also transformation of systems.
A big shift in enterprise work is that you really need to move.
Who's this?
Hello? Can you go on mute, please? Yeah. Can you, if you're talking, go on mute, please. You need to really move up to the place of not just working with individuals and not just working with collections of individuals, but actually working with systems. Systems have a logic all their own. That's different, and that's a different skill set to work with that whole on than it is with just individuals.
Right. So we want to weave in these two other this other layer, and this corresponds roughly to the four quadrants. And we just want to say very briefly, this is where we're talking about different epistemologies. So when we enter the complexity, the world of complexity that we find in enterprises, that we find ourselves needing to have different epistemologies, being able to operate from and within different epistemologies, which is just simply ways of knowing. And so the first epistemology is phenomenology, which is our own experience. So we want to have a way to be able to impact or to be able to catalyze transformation in the domain of individual experience or phenomenology.
And we're not just talking about experience in a generic, ordinary sense. We're talking about bringing a precision, a meditative kind of mindfulness mindset to our experience, so that we separate out what we really sense from what we make up.
Yeah. The second epistemology is systemic phenomenology. So just as in the domain of phenomenology, we work to help us be able to unpack our experience, to be able to have greater ownership of our own individual experience. So we do the same in the area of systems, which is two or more people come together and there's something which emerges, which we are calling a system. And we're referring to this as systemic phenomenology, which is a kind of an art and science and practice of working with and catalyzing transformation within systems.
The third one you're probably very familiar with, empirical thinking. Much of Agile philosophy and frameworks and processes are founded on empirical thinking. And though we are going to take that to a little bit different level, I think. And then the fourth one is complexity thinking, which is different. It's still externally oriented, objectively oriented, but it's a different kind of systems thinking. Systems thinking on the left is very personal. Systems thinking on the right is very objective, you might say.
Right. Okay, good. So at the center of all of this is sense making, integral sense making. So this whole model is built on both integral theory and on sense making, on the art and practice of sense making, both at the individual, at the relational level, and at the organizational level. And sense making is something that is always happening across all of these levels. And the thing is for the most part, we're unaware of it. And a big part of the practice that we dive into in this program is what we call deliberate sense making, which is the capacity to notice, to become aware of the beliefs and thoughts and stories that are running us, and to have greater, more direct authorship of those.
So as and that leads to, as Michael and I created this enterprise coach school together, when just a little less than a year ago, actually, at this point, we wanted to leverage my book, Agile Transformation, and the Integral Agile Transformation Framework, and his book, Evolve Agility and Deliberate Sense Making, and we put them together into what we call integral sense making in action. The action part is adaptive action, coming from Francois, I know, knows human systems dynamics, Glenda Oyoung.
Yeah, good point. So there are actually three underlying systems that inform all of this, which one of which is the Integral Agile Framework, the sense making, the Evolve Agility practices, and then the HSD, Human Systems Dynamics.
So should we show them the structure of the program? Oh no, the competency.
Yeah.
So we showed you, though, I was just realizing it as we showed you the other diagram. That's really a competency framework. So the 6 competencies in there, honestly, in our program, are sort of superseded by these. So they're emblematic of like, how anybody, from my point of view, would create a enterprise coaching framework. But the ones that we chose specifically for integral sense making and action are these 10.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of detail behind them. Yeah, and there's a whole set of IC Agile competencies that these are mapped to.
Right. Yeah, and it's important to say something about this, that this program is really oriented around these 10 competencies. These are the competencies that around which the whole the whole program is built. And embedded in these sets of competencies are the IC Agile Enterprise Coach Expert competencies. So just to give you that information. For us, these competencies hold a much higher bar than those that are given by IC Agile, quite frankly. And this is where it comes into what we're talking about here is mastery. And mastery, kind of like, when you achieve black belt and say in jujitsu, you're just now ready to start actually practicing. And that's the kind of mastery that we're talking about here.
And don't be scared off by the word mastery. Mastery doesn't mean you're perfect. Mastery more means you're conscious. And that when you do things and you screw up, which, I've only done a couple of times today so far, you know it, or you recover from it. You make sense of it in a different way. It holds a different place.
Yeah, and I would say that mastery it has to do with your relationship to the subject matter. The subject matter here is transformation. And, I'm not a black belt in anything, but what I have heard from talking with people who are is that it's like you break through into a different way of relating to your subject matter. It's like you start to see it very differently. You start to see the nuances and the complexity, and to be able to work in a very effective way in real time in relation to all of that. And that's what this program is oriented around. Okay, so
We're about 25 minutes in, Michael.
okay. So let's walk through the structure of the program. So the program starts. So if you're talking, can you put yourself on mute? Okay, so the program starts with a 5-day intensive, right? So you could say that it starts with a bang. And the 5-day intensive is intense. It's an intense deep dive that goes into all of the competencies that we'll be covering throughout the whole program. And more importantly, it creates a seed bed for the transformational container that is your cohort. So each cohort operates as what we call a deliberately developmental environment, which is an environment that is committed to individual transformation as well as transformation of the system itself. So a big part of this program is our own inner transformation, both as individuals and as systems.
And one of the things that, this is the second cohort that we'll be doing. Ten was in the first one. One of the things we learned in developing this, and I would say like sort of hit us in the face, is that we're used to developing programs for learning objectives against certain things that you're supposed to learn. And this program has nothing to do with that, honestly. It has to do with things that you're going to master or let's say become competent in. So it's not about us teaching you a bunch of stuff, particularly. It's not that we won't do some of that, but it's more important that you become competent and that you become a community of practice together and a deliberately developmental environment, which are complementary pieces to it. So it's about you practicing. It's about you becoming competent. It's about you struggling with things that you're not good at the beginning.
Yeah, and the struggle is almost always much more an internal struggle than it is, actual external struggle. So it's not so much a struggle with the concepts and ideas. It's that the program is designed to have every one of us run into those areas where we stop. Every one of us has a back door, a way that we step out of life when it gets hard. And to be able to operate in the world in which that we're talking about here requires something different from us. And so the 5-day intensive, while it's a deep dive into, or kind of like an initiation into the competencies, it's also an initiation into our own selves operating in this new domain of mastery. Okay, so
and it's not going to be 5 days in a row, by the way. It's going to be 3 days one week and 2 days the next.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. So after the intensive, we move into a period of 8 months, over the course of which we will have 15 cohort sessions. Each cohort session is 2 hours, and they're roughly broken up into 2 sort of segments, or 2 kind of phases, if you will. The first phase we refer to as the learning phase. So while we don't teach in the same way we do in a competency-based program, we still teach a lot, and we design environments for us to learn, for people to learn certain kind of foundational practices or meta practices. And among the things that we cover during this learning phase, or we dive deeply into, is integral theory, organization development, culture, adult development, leadership, and then, of course, a lot of practice. And then the second phase, the integration phase, this is where you all start to bring in your focal project. So every person in a given program will have a specific focal project related to the enterprise in which they work. And during this integration phase, we'll hear workplace experiments, applications, mentoring, supervisions, and more practice. So this is an opportunity for people to share what it is that they're grappling with and getting to some degree mentoring and coaching and advice and creating an environment in which people find themselves being able to move past those. Okay. Meanwhile, there are mentoring and supervisions. So each person will have a mentor, or what we call really a supervisor. And this person is the person that will work with you to help you um, take the or plan and take the necessary actions or steps toward completing your certification. And then at the end of which there's a final assessment.
Which is basically to demonstrate your competency in each of these areas, some of which will happen naturally within the cohort interaction, and a lot of which will happen in interaction with your focal client, and you know, giving us a write-up about that, or a recording possibly, or, you know, any number of possible scenarios.
And then meanwhile, you'll have working triads. So, and these working triads are, you'll have a minimum of 10 meetings with your working triads. And the purpose of these working triads is for you to have an environment to deep dive into challenges and issues that each of you are running into, and create like a mini deliberately developmental environment to support your work.
All right, that's probably enough, Michael. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's move into questions, because I think this is in a conversation, because I think this is where we'll be able to reveal more of the nuances here. So feel free, if you're in a non-noisy environment, to turn on your microphone. I'm going to move us into gallery view so we can at least see some of us. Okay. Well, good. So questions, comments, requests.
Maria, is anything stale in the questions?
No, we do have a question actually in the comments here from Delek. And Delek, I see also that Adam, you have your hand raised, and I'd love to invite anybody else who has a question to do the same, or of course to use the chat.
So Delek was first though, right?
Yeah, so Delek, would you like to go ahead and come off of mute and ask your question then? Or I can do it for you if that would be better.
I can do. Sorry. I had to connect from my phone. It may be a bit difficult to turn on the camera. Yeah, I can ask the question. Michael. Yeah, have you ever? I guess the answer is yes, but applied the integral thinking or integral model in the real client on the field, and how was your experience? Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of.
Did you get that, Michael?
Yeah, I think so. Let me say back what I think, because there's a little breaking up, Delek. Am I saying your name correctly, Delek?
Yes.
Okay, Delek. So here's what I'm hearing you saying. It sounds like you're asking, have we used aspects of integral theory in our work with organizations? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly. With the real clients on the field. Yeah.
Well, so I'll speak for myself. So from the very beginning of doing organizational work, I had already studied a lot of integral theory and spiral dynamics, and quite honestly, that was really my sort of introduction into organizational consulting and coaching. Was using precisely these models, and and I was actually really lucky. My very first large-scale engagement, we were able to really think systemically about the whole engagement. So, so absolutely. So throughout all of the consulting work, I've used it very extensively.
Yeah, me too, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is there something behind your question though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were the challenges or challenging points? Yeah, or perhaps you were lucky with the client. I'm not sure.
And is that I'm having a hard time finding the relevance of that to the cohort and like what you're trying to understand for yourself in regards to that.
Yeah, I mean, what were the Perhaps as you are the ones who have been working on this model or developing this model, you didn't have so many challenges, I guess. Let's say during the training. Yeah, that's all. I got it. I got it. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome, Dilek.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think one thing I would say at a meta level, Dilek, is that models are in no way an answer, right?
Exactly.
So I want to just be really clear. It's simply an aid. I actually don't relate to this work in terms of the models. Honestly, well, okay, I won't say what I was about to say.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Words. Okay. All right, so I think
Adam is next.
I just want to appreciate your demonstrating mastery right there and holding yourself back. So my question is, I'm in a consulting situation, so I'm concerned that during the cohort, I may not have control over not what my client does, but that I might end up leaving that client. And how would that play out through that experience, do you think?
Yeah. Well, so that's a frequent question of people because it's just the real world, right? So on the one hand, there's no magic answer for that. We can't, obviously create a client for you any more than you can. But that does happen to people at times, and we will do everything we can to work with you to accommodate that, to make that work out somehow, to retroactively go back into the client potentially. Some things you can do. I mean, you have to have a focal client for this to work, right? But if you at least have the client for some of the cohort and can apply some of the stuff, some things may be passable without their continued involvement. It's too individualistic to give you a pat answer to it, except for the fact that we're pretty determined to make it work with you, and
And that makes sense. Hopefully my client situation would not be so unstable where it would change during this experience, but these things, as you said, do happen.
They absolutely happen.
Yeah, and
we'll extend the time if we need to, until you get one, for instance, if that's necessary. I mean, we obviously don't want to do a lot of that, but I mean, if it happens, it happens.
yeah, life is something that happens, and part of what mastery here is how we are with that, how we operate with that. Cool, thank you.
I think Kirill was next.
Yeah, thanks. So in your ad materials and in this presentation, you use the word transformation a lot. What if I'm interested? I'm not running in or I'm not coaching in transformation. I'm more like doing a business as usual, if we can say it like that, stuff as an in-house coach in a big bank. So how do you understand the word transformation here, and how is it going to apply to my situation?
Well, do you are you in the position to so here's the differentiator fundamentally. You've got to move beyond team and program coaching up to organizational coaching, regardless of whether it's a transformation, quote unquote, a transformation. So if you have influence on senior leaders, not like leaders, not managers of teams, but like senior leaders. If you have influence on the portfolio, on the product development process altogether within some business unit, not just a team or a few teams, but like, in some sense, meaningfully organizationally, then you should be fine.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Well, and the other thing I would say, Kirill, is that oftentimes we don't see transformational possibilities even when they're right in front of us. So part of it is where we're looking and how we're looking. And a big part of this program is a transformation in the meaning making from which you look at the world around you. It's kind of like, you know, when was the last time you bought a car? Have you bought a car before, Kirill?
That was a couple of months ago.
A couple of months ago. Okay, good. So there was a certain make or model of a car that you found yourself interested in, and I bet anything that once you knew which kind of car you were interested in, as you were driving around, what you saw was lots of those cars that you hadn't seen before. So something in your own sense making shifts what you can see. And a big part of this program is shifting that with which you see the world around you. And people start to see the world around them very differently. Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
thanks.
I think Cindy's next, and then Palomi.
Cindy, hi, Cindy.
Hey, hi, Michael.
Hey.
Nice
Good
to
to see
see
you.
you again. I have a couple of comments and then a question. Just Dilek asked a question, and I would tell you, Dilek, that I did not develop this model or this class or this cohort, but I have attended workshops and intensives with both Michaels separately and together, and I've been using this in my work for 6-7 years now. So I would not consider myself a master, but certainly what you learn in a cohort like this, you can apply. To Michael's point, a lot of it might be how you look at things differently and how you approach things differently. Even if your client does not, you might. So so if you're looking for somebody that has incorporated this that didn't actually create the model, let me know. I'd be happy to chat with you about that.
Thanks, Cindy.
Like I said, I don't consider myself an expert, but I have learned from masters, and so I'm a little bit better from that perspective. So the question I have is, well, maybe it's a statement and a confirmation, Michael Hamman. I think I heard you say that this, like many other cohorts and mastery programs, is as much about our transformation as it is the techniques and tools and the transformation we're helping a client through. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the very first competence, right? And
Okay.
and that wasn't an accident.
Okay.
The coach's sense making is their most important tool of transformation.
Right. So no matter how we come into this, whether we're novices, whether we're, very experienced or whatever, there are things that we can learn about ourselves in our own personal transformation that we can then apply with clients.
Well, it's not
put
so
it this
much
way.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
I'll answer quick. Put it this way. We learn things in running this cohort, so probably you're going to learn things too.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that there are the things that you learn that you don't think of that these are things that I learned, but you see things differently. You have a different way of looking at the world, including cognitively. Like, for instance, one of the things we work a lot with in this program is dialectical thinking. And you may think you know what dialectical thinking is, but you probably don't. Most people don't. And dialectical thinking, to understand the complex nature of organizational practices like that we see in OD and systems thinking, and especially the more recent ones, would be impossible without being able to have the capacity for dialectical thinking. Thank
Both.
you, Cindy.
Yep. Cindy, I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand, and then Michael. The next question actually comes from Philippe. And
Philippe, where's Philippe? Okay, there you are. Okay, good to see you, Philippe.
We'll let you keep running the questions, Marie.
Okay, thank you. Philippe, would you like to come off mute? Ask your question, please. You're on mute.
Yeah, come off mute.
Sorry.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, sorry. So basically, I really love the books you wrote, and it made me a lot of thinking and growing myself. And I'm very keen to continue this kind of growth. But as Michael Hamman say, I don't want to be addicted about growth. I want also to help others to grow. And so my idea is it is about. I mean, to a competency we will have to help people to hold environment to grow other people and also ourselves during this cohort journey. It's just a confirmation about that because most of the time I'm feeling a little bit detached between people I'm working with and how to help them to grow. So I really need to have this support for myself to have this competency to help people growing. I mean, yeah. So that's my issue today. And so my question is about if the cohort is about making those both approach. So yeah.
Well, okay. So what I would say to that is, without attempting to speak too directly to what you may be looking for, is that you could say from a certain perspective that this whole program is about catalyzing transformation in other people and within organizational systems.
In fact, I would like to, of course, I would like to catalyze development, my development, my inner development, but I want also to be able to continue this with people in the organization I'm working with. And most of the time, I'm a little bit detached. I did a lot of training, so I have a lot of knowledge, but I don't know how to support people, and I don't have your years of experience about this. And so my thinking is it possible from this training to have to experiment both this development within me and also to have enough to after to help people further?
Well, one of the competencies is certainly to create development in other people.
Yeah.
And that said, is the level at which we pay attention to that as great as the level we pay attention to your development? No. Okay. But we certainly do pay attention to it. And my experience is that the more you develop, the more you become skillful at helping other people to develop without anybody telling you how to do that even. You just become more useful to other people because you're not as overloaded with your own ego needs and things that create confusion in the environment, frankly, and get in. That's why it's ultimately the Native Americans said that I should become a hollow bone so that spirit can blow through me.
Okay.
And that's what we're trying to help you do, is to be a hollow bone.
And to build on that, Philippe, so exactly, and to build on that, then the skills that you learn within the environment of this program will be that much more powerfully applied. You see, there's something in you, I would dare say, if I may speak to you personally, that says that has something to do with whether or not you can impact people, right? And part of what you will encounter in this program is what it is that is a block for you in that.
Okay.
So there's some story or there's something that you've got yourself organized around that has you think a certain way. And the whole program is designed to expose our blind spots and to also expose those parts of ourselves that nobody sees and we don't see. But I want to be very clear that it's also about exposing ourselves to practices and tools and techniques, but that can only be used in the hands of a master. Right? We're not going to give, one of those fine samurai swords to a 3-year-old child, right? We wait until
Yeah.
this person is already a master, and then we hand them the sword and say, here, you already know how to use this now.
Children, we hand sticks called bokken in Aikido. Actually,
Yeah.
they're not sharp,
Mhm.
and they can.
Right. But you walk away from this program with very sharp tools, but more importantly, the inner capacity to yield and wield those tools.
We got about 10 minutes left. Marie, who's
Thank you.
next?
Yeah, and I think too, let's see how the Q&A is going, Michael, but the next question then, Palomi, if I say that
Yeah,
correctly, would you
Hey.
please come
Yeah.
off mute and ask your question?
Hey, hi. So I joined this session late, for which I'm really sorry. I'll just start with that. However, as I was listening to the conversation, what caught my attention was what Adam said. Like, from that understanding, first of all, I would like to confirm that, is it that during this course of this program, we need to have one focal client? That is the first, yeah.
Yes.
In that
Yes.
case, Michael, what is the problem that I have is I come from an Indian IT industry background, okay? And for us, the clients might change within very short spans of time. It might stay same, it might go different.
All right.
For us to have a very focal client, like to have a commitment to have a focal client is not in our hands.
Right.
In
Did you-
such a case, yeah.
Sorry, Malumi, did you hear my answer to Adam with his question?
I did, but I did not grasp the entire meaning of it.
So
If you could-
can you
yeah.
distinguish for me exactly what, because I want to get to all the questions, can you distinguish exactly what's the difference in your question?
Yeah, the difference in this question is that for Adam, it is a consulting job. Most probably his client will remain the same, but he also has an opportunity to have one identified as a focal client, right? In my case, that might not be true.
Okay,
It
so
might
I'll
not be
try
true
to
or it
get
won't be
that.
true.
okay, let me just jump in because we have a very little bit of time left. So
Yeah.
Palomi, what I'm understanding you're saying is that, or you're asking is that, could you be in this program even though you may jump from one focal system to another focal system, perhaps even
Right.
3 focal systems over the course of the program? And I would say yes. The main point is that you have systems in which you can practice and demonstrate competence in various areas related to the underlying competencies of the program. That's the main point.
Related to
that works.
organizational coaching skills, not team coaching skills.
Agreed.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
That
Good.
part agreed.
Good. Did that answer
Cool.
your question, Palomi?
Yes, thank you so much, Michaels.
Yep. You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, Adam is back. Okay, Adam. All right.
I think, Marie, who's next?
Francois. Thank you, Francois.
Francois, where are you? Shake your hand or something so we can see you.
I'm here.
Where did it go?
He's
Oh,
sitting
there
by
you
the
are. Oh, there you are,
Swiss
Francois. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Beautiful
That's
Swiss lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
My ring was about the word transformation. To me, but that might be just me, the word transformation evokes that there's an intention of achieving some predefined goal. And yet I see the word transformation mixed in your presentation with seeing change as something fluid. I'm not saying unintentional, but fluid, not controllable in the classical sense of the word. So maybe you can say something about that and about your understanding of the word transformation. That would help me.
Well, transformation is an intention, not a prediction. People use it people use the word agile transformation in an extremely dumbed down way, right? It's a commodity. They use it for everything. That's bullshit.
Right.
Part of me writing that book was to dignify the term transformation to what it really means. That said, a transformation, in my view, is we use the term predict and plan versus sense and respond as management underlying paradigms or operating systems, right? In predict and plan, we plan to make a prediction about what's going to happen, and then we manage to have that prediction come true. In sense and respond, we still plan, but we don't do it to predict the future. We do it to say, here's what's important to me now. Here's what I see now. Here's where I think I'm going, so that then the next time stamp we can see, how did that change? What happened? What did we learn? What new things, what adaptive actions did we take that changed, the containers, differences, and exchanges?
So the other thing that I would say about transformation, Francois, is that that transformation has to do with a shift in the quality of capability within a human system. So it's not so much getting a human system from point A to point B, but helping a human system develop the capability with respect to all four of the quadrants, if you're familiar with that language, to develop the capability such that they can move where it's important for them to move. So it's a little bit of a nuance. Transformation is not a goal-oriented change. It's actually completely different than change. A transformation is a shift in the quality of inner capability, whether it's in an individual or in an entire organization.
So you're using it more like a metamorphosis or something like that. It's much more in the complex domain than in the complicated domain.
Yes.
Because I see what you're saying, Michael Spayd, about the dumbed down version being just, moving from a complicated system A to a complicated system B.
Yeah. Right.
And so you're using it in the complex part of the world.
Yes, and also
Thank
holding that your client is likely going to hold it in the predict and plan sense, and that's a real challenge to know that that's oversimplification. It's just fucking not true, but it is what people think. It is what our clients think.
And that's ultimately where our own inner transformation starts to play, which is developing within ourselves the capacity to deal with that inherent kind of complexity, where we have a view which is very different from their view. And so, what's the nature of my way of seeing things such that I can see a way through that? And that requires it within me a transformation. Yep. Okay, great.
Adam.
Okay, so the triads, how are those put together? What's the intention? I felt like I could use a little bit more there.
We use an extremely scientific procedure that's called random gods, GODS.
And what principles do those gods live by?
What do those gods live by?
What principles do those gods live by?
That's above my pay grade, brother.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We can hope for that. But there may be.
The intention, Michael, of my question, or Michael's, the intention of my question was, we have a geographic distributed group just here on this, pretty diverse, and that could be a challenge.
We might make an accommodation for that.
Yeah. Right. So we're not going to
adjust the random gods a little bit, especially if you're in Australia. Anybody from Australia? Australia and India tends to be very challenging times for European and North Americans.
Yeah, and we have one person from Singapore, at least we did at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
So we take that absolutely into account, and the purpose, just to answer the other part of your question, the purpose of the triads is for you to have a more intimate container to work very, very deeply on your developing your competencies and doing the work that you do in this program.
And so that those triads stay together over the period of time.
Yep, over the entire course of the program. You're basically going to be married to your triad partners.
That doesn't mean that you can't get into other groupings of whatever kind. We would very much encourage you to do that. We'd encourage you to set up conversations with everybody in the triad at everybody in a cohort at some point, and learn from them and exchange, whatever with them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great.
We are about out of time. Oh no, we're completely out of time.
All right. So, well, we are out of time. Well, that's a weird thing to say. We're not out of time at all. It's now 5:30 European time, and it's whatever time it is now. And this is the end of our scheduled time together. And honestly, when we do these things, I wish we could go for another half hour. And so, anyways, thank you, everybody.
We do have a recording of this, and we can send you the link if you would like it for your friends. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.